My name is Tomasz Zelinka. Because my native language is Slovak, the voice you are hearing is an AI voice reading my own words. This is a serious video. It contains a great deal of truth, and it is meant to teach rather than to entertain. It is one coherent proposal: philosophy first, then the school, then the state, the courts, and the economy. Philosophy is the highest of them because everything else is only philosophy applied. The ideas are mine. The visualization is cosmic tapestry. The movement is New Wise Gen Z. Lux et Veritas. Spirit is the highest thing a human being studies, and the highest thing a human being uses. Inside the head, there is something like a projector. We generate a projection of light. Besides the objective world, we can generate the entire world of our own thought. And that world is no less real than the world you can touch. The two are one. Our aim is to harmonize our dreams with the life we actually live. But we want to believe in something colorful, beautiful, and kind. Beliefs worth having. Our capacity to believe is a natural energy system. Whatever we give attention to, we see grow. So, the wisest thing is to give that attention to love and to something luminous. That is our power to manifest, but we must understand one another. And for that, a society needs a coherent philosophy. A stream of thought that leads where life is fulfilling and valuable for all of us. That is what virtue means. The system must never prevent a person from being euphoric, happy, full of love, from shining in the crowd. Everybody wants that sometimes. The artist, and the scientist who has discovered something, and now wants to lecture about it. Let us do it with enthusiasm, and with mutual respect. So, spirituality is not boredom. It means we do everything with soul. Everything in society becomes spirited. That is a higher form of existence than the nihilistic, authoritarian regime we have now. Above all, we want to express ourselves. Art is individual creative expression. Today it is commerce and product, and that limits how fully we can speak. Life is short, and any expression is excellent as long as it is spirited and not hateful. Or if it is hateful, only as theater. I do not like competition. It is bad for a society. Today, we feel we deserve nothing because we do not produce the results someone else produces. Yet that outcome is very often influenced by genetics or simply by financial unfairness. The same is true in education. Wealthy families have children in better schools, so they show better results. But a genius may be born who never attends school at all because he lives in different conditions. Look at the tree. It came from a seed that had the potential to be a tree. But it had to be supported by moisture, by warmth, by light, and by nutrition, or it would never grow. A human being, at least in our time, has to be supported by money, attention, love, and information in order to flourish. So we do not evaluate results, because there are no results yet. We support potential. When a person of genius is born into a poor family, it is right to support that family financially, so that the gift appears. It is for the good of all. No personality cults, and do not hand your power to anyone. Simply support what has great potential, with attention, with knowledge, with money. The results will come. There is no need to put people down for a weaker performance when they are only beginning. I imagine children on a playground. They are still innocent. I do not believe in inherited sin. They want to play. In a plain sense, they are children of the sun, because without the sun, there would be no life. There is truth in wanting to keep that childlike perception of the world and not to alter our own nature. It is our essence to be spirited, holy, and smiling. Competition damages exactly this. So does shame. Spirituality must be a basic subject for children, or the society will never become advanced. Later, at school, when they are older, they want to understand their own existence better. Again, this happens through debate and discussion, not only through memorized facts, although facts must also be absorbed. For example, the information that there were wars badly damages the perception the child arrived with. But when it is properly understood why wars arose, and that is all metaphysics, the society is strengthened and does not allow it to happen again. So metaphysics, which is only another word for spirituality, is still here with us. To understand that we are souls frees us from conflict. We begin to solve things differently, so that the fight never has to happen. Intelligence is not enough. Love is needed, and love without shame. Later, the adults, and the wisest among them, resolve everything through politics. But even that is only philosophy applied in practice, not the management of a state as if it were a corporation. Real debate, spirited, loving, and disobjectified. That is a wise society. A society with a council of the wise, who accompany it and solve its problems wisely. But it begins at school. They still carry the inner child from the playground in the heart. They understand that life is precious, so there is no time for hatred, when everything always goes better with love. Without that spirituality, the state simply will not manage, and it will fall. They still have the spark in their eyes, and they like helping one another, because they understand how much easier life becomes. They understand that we are not our convictions, our intelligence, or our thoughts. So they can debate and explain without it becoming personal, and without insulting anyone. Bad people can be taught the right path, and then they correct themselves, but let us do it by explanation. Today, everything is done by punishment alone, and punishment is not an answer. A person must have things explained to him, and his own point of view must be understood in full. Let him explain as well, and then it is decided who had the more correct path. Usually, though, the law already works this way. A person is judged badly because he acted badly, and we consider that act bad because we have strong grounds for it. So justice and responsibility do exist, but they are understood spiritually and empathetically, not only superficially. Here is the whole proposal in one frame: law, spirit, measure. A state built on law instead of popularity. A school built on debate instead of memorization. An economy built on backing and generosity instead of debt. And a philosophy that remembers the soul. Republic means res publica, the public thing. The law rules, and the people who serve it are surrogates, not owners of power. The philosopher is the natural teacher. Emanationism, monism, and Neoplatonism describe the one, the intellect, and the soul. We are souls, and we cannot not be souls. We are what we know. If a man knows himself, he is Gnosis itself. Republic and democracy are not synonyms, and this is the foundation of everything that follows. A republic is the rule of law, reached by comprehension. A democracy is the rule of preference, reached by counting. In a republic, the question is this proposal right, and can anyone show that it is not? In a democracy, the question is, how many hands went up? 51 people can be wrong, and 49 can be right, and counting will never notice. Democracy is not supernatural, and it is not the best system if its failure rate is 100%. Now a good question: why are both systems placed on one territory? Once, people debated which system is better, and some of them lost their lives over it. Cicero among them. Plato would widen his eyes. He would not believe that we managed the impossible, and merged two different systems into one. It is like a car with two engines, two cars in one making a hybrid. It is like two firms building two houses on one plot, until the living room of the first house is the toilet of the second, and yet they somehow form one house. It is like two companies inside one production hall, a welder and a carpenter sharing an overhead crane, with sparks falling into the sawdust. That is how absurd it is to say democratic republic. It is like saying anarchic monarchy, or technocratic democracy, or bureaucratic democracy. So who governs, the office or the crowd? This complicates instead of solving. If popularity cannot decide, what can? Elimination can. Voting asks which proposal is liked. The exclusion method asks which proposals must be removed. Whatever contradicts itself is struck out. Whatever violates natural rights is struck out. Whatever is unfunded or unmeasurable is struck out. What survives every objection is adopted. Not because it is popular, but because nothing valid excludes it. Truth has no competitors, only survivors. Elimination can be verified by anyone, popularity by nobody. Athens voted for the Sicilian expedition, a jury of 501 voted Socrates to death. This method has a longer philosophical name, and it is worth knowing the whole family. Induction moves from many particulars to a general rule. It is useful, but it can never be finished. One black swan ends it. Deduction moves from a general rule to a particular case. It is certain, but only as true as the premise you are handed. Abduction, or retroduction, moves from the phenomenon back to the cause that must be there for it to appear at all. The emphasis belongs here. And apophasis, the via negativa, removes everything the thing cannot be. What cannot be removed is the thing. How do you find a needle in a haystack? Burn the hay. The needle does not burn. Meditation, jhana, which literally means to burn, is that same acceleration applied inwardly to thought. In the older world, people went deep into theurgy and resolved these questions in the depth of their own mind. The practice is a continuous filtering of information into what is true and what is not. We keep the facts, the logic inside the claim, and the wisdom in the explanation. Everything else we let be, without quarreling with it. Very often, information comes from a person who merely asserts what he thinks. That is not a source. That is an opinion wearing the coat of a source. The unenlightened man identifies with his thoughts, his beliefs, and his intelligence. The enlightened man knows he is the soul that observes them. Therefore, disagreement stops being an insult and debate becomes possible at all. The better explanation wins, not the louder speaker. The wisdom traditions describe a repeatable inner method and its result. Stillness, attention withdrawn from objects, disobjectification carried to the end. Not my body, not my feelings, not my thoughts, not my intelligence. What cannot be removed is what you are. The result is gnosis. Not information about the divine, but knowledge of it, in which the knower and the known coincide. This is why it cannot be transmitted as a fact, only as a path. Modern science ignored this entirely, not because it was tested and failed, but because it does not fit the instrument. We are souls, and we cannot not be souls. We are what we know, and if one knows himself, he is gnosis itself. Here is the metaphysics in one slide, and it is monistic. One source, one substance, many degrees. Reality is not built out of separate things. It is one reality at different densities of light. Spirit and matter are degrees of the same reality, which is precisely why they can interact at all. The one, the intellect, the soul, the cosmos. Emanation, not manufacture. Descent, not exile. Plotinus. The one is not diminished by what flows from it, as the sun is not diminished by its light. And notice that the same method that governs the Senate governs metaphysics. You approach what is real by removing what it is not. Now the physics, because this teaching is not separate from nature. What older physics called the aether appears in modern language as the dielectric or electrostatic field. A field is not empty space with things in it. It is the continuum whose stresses are the things. That is emanationism written in physics. Water and the body resonate in the pentagram's 36, 36, 108-degree geometry, matter as a tuned antenna for something that is not matter. Tesla said that all perceptible matter comes from a primary substance filling all space, the akasha, or luminiferous aether, acted upon by the life-giving prana. But we are told the aether was refuted. It was not refuted, it was renamed. The Michelson-Morley experiment began from a false premise, that something shoots out of a lamp and strikes a mirror. Nothing of the kind happens, unless that something is precisely the ether itself. Field theory and electrical theory built our entire technology, and they were written by men who were certain of the ether. Then a circus in logic followed. The ether was declared refuted, space-time was reified, an abstraction mistaken for a concrete thing, and finally they boarded the quantum train and called it the quantum field. Aether, mind, spirit, soul, animus, the dielectric field, the quantum field, counter space, zero-point energy, one principle under many names, several of them invented to avoid the word metaphysics. What supposedly flies out of the bulb is an excitation in the field, an activity, a discharge, not a thing. Monad theory is field theory, and field theory is metaphysics and physics in one. The field can be made visible. The ferrocell and similar experiments show the dielectric geometry directly. The field can be measured. Grounding a human being is a measurement, and the human field is measurable too. Low values do not mean insignificance. Spirit was always described as the subtle thing, and there the power lies. What Maxwell called the dielectric field is later spoken of as magnetism. The vocabulary changed, the principle did not. Field theoretic work, Oleg Jefimenko's treatment of electromagnetic retardation among it, shows the phenomena can be derived without the relativistic apparatus. Mind is the source from which an idea arises at all. Mind is a synonym of spirit, and spirit is a synonym of aether. Now, the state built from the same principle, no president, and the law at the center. The council sits at a round table, former soldiers and former police officers, whose competence is the defense of the state and the protection of human rights. It signs law into force, and a law is enacted by 10 signatures, so responsibility is personal and traceable. The Senate holds up to 150 members delegated from the offices, practitioners, carpenters, mechanics, engineers, farmers, physicians, philosophers. They are chosen for age, experience, and record, never for charisma, and the Senate does not decide by majority, it decides by elimination. Any citizen who has completed secondary school and is over 18 may speak before the Senate and submit a proposal. The citizen is the head, the citizen constitutes the state. Citizens may form an association to prepare a proposal, a political party, if you like, and internally it may debate however it wishes, even democratically. But only one speaker receives the floor. The collective sharpens the argument. It does not multiply the vote. The offices remain, the ministries remain, the courts remain and are ordinary. What is removed is the single face on top of the pyramid. There are 2 versions of this proposal, and both are good. The first is a little stricter, the second a little simpler. The first version keeps 2 chambers, a roundtable council of former state defenders, and a senate of experienced officials and teachers. The second version merges them into one chamber of 10, 5 former state defenders and 5 former officials or teachers, each with several years of real practice. It is simpler to convene and harder to capture. The same 2 competences sit at one table instead of 2. In both versions there is no president, and in both versions duty is acquired, never power. The seat is a service, not a prize. Neither is a finished constitution. They are proposals put honestly on the table. Change the meaning of a word and you have changed the constitution without amending it. Surrogate comes from sub and rogare, to propose in the place of another. Rogare means to ask. To put a bill to the people. A surrogate stands behind the one from whom the power comes. He is asked, and he does not own the asking. Representative comes from re and presentare, to make present again. It substitutes for theirs for a fixed term, a transfer of sovereignty that Rousseau denied was possible at all. Governor comes from gubernare, to steer the ship. The helmsman does not own the ship, the cargo, or the crew. He answers to the destination. Governance is navigation, not possession. Minister comes from minus, the lesser one, the exact opposite of magister, the greater one. A minister who behaves as a master has inverted his own title. And ruler comes from regula. A rule is a straight measuring rod. Properly the ruler is the law, and the law is the measure. A man who calls himself the measure has replaced law with will. Dictator, literally to keep saying, was a Roman 6-month emergency office. Permanent dictation is the corruption. So, let this be stated plainly, because the whole Constitution rests on it. A surrogate is the one who stands behind, not in front, as a leader does. A surrogate is not a leader. A surrogate is not a superior. A surrogate is not a subordinate either. A surrogate is paid by the very people he stands for, and he is respected for the importance of the service. A surrogate acquires no power. He acquires a duty, and this must be understood. Where the office is a duty, ambition changes its object. You no longer want the seat, you want the task done well. This question is not new, and every serious observer who watched a pure democracy operate said the same thing. Polybius, anacyclosis. Monarchy decays into tyranny, aristocracy into oligarchy, democracy into mob rule. Only a mixed constitution, Rome's consuls, senate, and assemblies checking each other, slows the cycle. Plato, the ship of state. The crew votes on who steers, although navigation is a skill, not a preference. The popular pilot is not the competent one. Aristotle, Politia is the healthy rule of the many under law. Democracy is its deviation, where the poor majority rules for itself, rather than for the common good. John Adams, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy that did not commit suicide. Rousseau, sovereignty cannot be represented, for the same reason it cannot be alienated. The general will is either exercised or lost. None of them opposed the people. They opposed the counting of heads as a substitute for reason. Now the school, and here the damage is done by a single, mistranslated word. Pedagogos in Greece was the slave who walked the child to school. To rename the teacher after the slave escort and then treat that name as a science is a straw man built out of etymology. What was lost is that original schooling was debate. The pupil argued with the teacher, and the teacher was a philosopher, a lover of wisdom, not an administrator of grades. What replaced it is an authoritarian system. Classes as boxes, ranking, rules, the teacher above rather than in front. Memorization is measured, because memorization is easy to measure. Wisdom is transcendent. It passes to others. I can give you wisdom, but I cannot give you honesty. Yet a wise man knows he must be honest. 3 pictures settle the question completely. First, in the household, a slave takes the child by the hand from the family. He is property, not a scholar. Second, he walks him to school. Accompanying meant exactly this, physically walking beside the child through the streets. He taught him nothing. Third, at the school the child sits with other children, and a philosopher teaches them. That man is the teacher. So a completely foolish redefinition took place. The escort was renamed the educator, and the philosopher was renamed an optional subject. If a person wants to teach today, he must first study pedagogy. Consider what that sentence actually says. A taxi driver carries people. Imagine that in 2 centuries, through a slip of language, universities offered a degree in carriageology, and nobody could teach physics without it. The porter carried the luggage to the room. Nobody concluded that hospitality science should be named after him and required of the chef. Philosopher means lover of wisdom. One who loves wisdom understands, and one who understands can explain. Teacher and philosopher are nearly synonyms. Pedagogue is an absurdity. This is part of the new wise Gen Z movement. The error is examined critically, and the school is refounded on the philosopher, not on the memory of a slave who walked beside a child. What would such a school look like in practice? Shorter, freer, and more effective. Years 1 to 5, the foundations of logical thinking, the exclusion method, reading aloud, writing, and constant debate. Disobjectification from the beginning. Years 5 to 8, debate and discussion as the main form, with basic manual skills, handling real tools, growing vegetables and fruit, the development of art. Secondary years, practice-oriented, real work, real materials, real problems, with debate continuing throughout. University, specialization in the chosen field only. By then the person can already think, speak, listen, and work with his hands. Abolish grading and competition between pupils. Keep mathematics, physics, and the sciences, but simplify and shorten them. A child learns most from the books that interest him, from parents, from ordinary people around him, and later from the work itself. Books, podcasts, archives, and artificial intelligence as a search engine are all available. The school is no longer needed as the sole channel. Grades rank children against each other. Debate ranks arguments against reality. Only one of those is education. A society needs people who can dismantle an argument and who are noble enough to do it without waging war, quarreling, or humiliating anyone. Debate seeks what remains true. An argument seeks a winner. War is only an argument that ran out of language. Define, separate, eliminate, conclude. Agree the terms first. Disobjectify so that the claim is on the table and not the person. Remove contradictions and fallacies and accept what survives. Changing your position is the point of the exercise, not a defeat. How we act is mirrored back to us by society. The effect of our deeds keeps moving through the world, even after death. And the reform of the school requires the reform of the army. More spirit in it, we only defend, and we want to live as freely as possible, within and in accord with the natural laws. Now, the economy, and it fails for exactly the same reason. A word was redefined, and nobody was told. Since 1971, money has had no backing. What circulates is credit and confidence, yet it still behaves as though it were trading stored value. Money backed by gold is like a republic backed by law. Remove the backing and both keep their name while losing their substance. Backed, then Bretton Woods, then the Nixon shock of 1971, then today. Value stored became a claim on states only, then the claim was gone, then credit issued as debt and priced by scarcity of access. The rat race is a rule of the game, not a law of nature. If value is issued as debt, generosity looks irrational and hoarding looks prudent. The false idea of money manufactures greed and calls it economics. The problem is not that money changed. The problem is that its definition changed, and nobody retaught the society what it is now holding. Say it plainly, money that is not tied to matter is credit, and credit is belief. Confidence cannot back a currency. It is illogical and unstable, and in that respect, the modern economy is a religion with worse theology. Backing is gold in the vault. The note is a claim on something that exists, whether or not you believe in it. Credit is a promise, still real, but its value is now a collective state of mind. Illusion is keeping the price and removing the substance. There's a repair we can begin today, crowdfunding and contribution for contribution. Not trade, recognition. If someone pours energy outward, it is right that support flows back, including passively. And if money is belief, then let us say plainly what we believe in. Light. Value behaves like electrical induction. It appears where energy is actually given. Crowdfunding is not charity. It is the natural, voluntary allocation of credit to a visible need. A man walks past a street musician and drops something in the case. Nobody voted, nobody was taxed, nobody was forced. Value moved to value. The internet is that same street at planetary scale. A donate button, a fund page, a subscription. It sets free the musician, the poet, the rapper, the philosopher writing essays, anyone whose work has no product to sell but real worth to others. They earn credit directly from the people who receive the benefit. It repairs problems the government cannot solve or refuses to solve. A local bridge, a treatment, an instrument, an investigation, a book, solved in weeks by the people who care, with responsibility visible to all. And it belongs in the school, how to state a need honestly, how to publish a budget, how to account for what was given, how to say thank you. That is civics, with real consequences. Generosity is a noble virtue. Greed is demonic. You cannot serve both God and mammon. It is more blessed to give than to receive. So it is one system, not two. Every part above is the same principle applied in a different field. Remove what cannot stand, keep what remains, and let the measure rule, not the crowd, not the boss, not the market. Today, a republic in name and a democracy in method. Popularity decides, fame is a qualification, the teacher is an administrator, memorization in grades, money as unbacked debt, spirituality privatized out of public life. Proposed, a republic in name and in method. Elimination decides, competence, age and record are the qualification, and there is no highest office to reach. The philosopher teaches, logic, debate and craft, honest accounting of credit, spirit as the ground of virtue and of law. The citizen has the head and constitutes the state. The council signs and takes responsibility. The law rules and the power never leaves the people, not even after the vote. One last thing, and it is the most important of all. The teaching that the divine is one is the most important teaching in the world, and the wisest human beings taught it. Yeshua, Buddha, Plato, Plotinus, Jacob Burma, Meister Eckhart, Ananda Kumaraswamy, Nikola Tesla, Ken Wheeler. One doctrine, across many centuries. Empiria means experience. I, Tomasz Zelinka, confirm this from the same mystical experience as an empirical fact. It is repeatable, which is precisely why they taught a method and pointed at a path. Democracy is not supernatural. Complication is not innovation. Systems must be simple and monistic. Spirituality must be a basic subject for children, or the society will never be advanced. Wisdom, above everything. The source, monism, spirit, the school, and your own experience. It is likened to lightning in nature, white and hot, light and love, lux et veritas.